Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Art of Business English, and this is episode 133. Hello to you, Loic. How are you, buddy?
Andrew, I'm well. Thank you. Can't complain. It's, we're going into summer, so things are looking up.
Yeah, it's looking up. And have you got power this week?
I have power. Yeah, we haven't had what we call load shedding for a couple of days now. It's inexplicable.
That's great. Well, I'm not sure if you can see, but here it's been raining all morning, so we're heading the other way. I'm not very happy, but that's okay. That's life. So good. Always nice to start talking about the weather. If you have listened to previous episodes of the Art of Business English, where Loic and I spoke about making small talk, an easy one to start is with the weather, which is always nice and comfortable. Anyway, we better move on to this week's topic. If you were with us last week, which I hope you were, you would have realized that we've been looking at improving your listening skills. And last week we discussed harpooning and boomeranging, which does sound a bit strange, but I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 132 of the Art of Business English. And this week we're going to continue with this topic or this theme of improving your listening skills as pretty much as a leader. I mean, these skills are pretty relevant for most people, even if you're, not leading teams. But if you are leading teams, managing people, then it is a really good idea to maybe practice or take on board some of the skills that we're discussing in this three-part mini-series. And today, what are we looking at today, Loic? What's the topic?
Well, empathetic listening, active listening, listening with empathy.
Excellent. So that sounds a bit wishy-washy, doesn't it?
It does, right?
Yeah, I've got to be nice to people and understand their feelings. So, which is quite interesting because I think that empathetic listening, this is the problem. I mean, I speak Spanish, and in Spanish it's empatía. Empathetic listening, I think, business is, this high-powered, fast-paced world where you just get things done and close the deal. So it sounds a bit weird to mix, how do we, what, you want me to listen to someone's feelings? I mean, doesn't that seem a bit contradictory or weird in the world of business?
It comes across as that, isn't it? And I think we've got stereotypes of what the successful leader or who the successful leader is and what their character traits are. And normally, they portray it in a very one-sided way. And they even talk about a speaker. Generally, it's all about the speaker. No one says anything about any listener. And yet there's a lot of power in the listening. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's what we're going to look at today. So I completely agree. I mean, leaders are perceived as people who, can get, people behind them because they give these wonderful speeches and follow me to the end. Yeah. And they're the ones who are explaining everything. They're the ones with the ideas, and they're the ones that you should listen to and follow. Whereas if you want to be a good leader, or if you're managing people, or you're dealing with, you're in a team of people, or if you want to create a good work environment, you should learn to not every single moment of your life, but knowing how to be an empathetic listener is a really important skill. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And I'm just going to look at what is empathy. We're going to look at some of the reasons why people don't share their feelings. And I think that's important because if you understand why people don't share their feelings, maybe then you can be more sensitive and aware. We're also going to be looking at when you should use empathy at work, because of course this is the Art of Business English. But these skills, you can use them with your family, or your kids, or your husband, or your wife. We'll also be looking at listening to facts versus listening to feelings. And then in the second part of the episode, we're going to go into more the nuts and bolts, where we look at helpful expressions, because as you're learning languages, or English in this case, useful to have some target language that you can use to start to practice this skill set. And we're also going to look at ways to show empathy. And finally, we're going to give you some tips on how to or things that you should avoid saying. So things that are very unhelpful and unempathetic towards others. So let's roll along and start with what is empathy. Would you like to outline quickly what is empathy to our listeners?
I'm going to give you a one-liner. I'm going to say the ability to understand another's feelings and maybe share in those feelings. Put yourself in their shoes, in other words.
Exactly. Put yourself in the other person's position, or try to put yourself in the other person's position. Because it's never you can never be 100% in someone else's shoes, because obviously you're not them. And you should probably avoid saying, I know exactly how you're feeling. We tend to say that because we think that that's showing, that we understand, but we can never really understand how someone else is feeling, but we should try to, attempt to understand how they're feeling. So that really is it, no? It is just, trying to understand someone else's feelings or their position.
Where they're coming from, basically.
Exactly. And what are the benefits of that? Why should we bother? Who cares about other people and their feelings, especially in business? What's one of the benefits, do you think, in business?
Well, I think, it's funny you say that, especially in business. And I'll tell you something that happens, especially in business, is having to resolve conflict. Conflict resolution is probably a big one. So, and let's face it, workplace disputes, unhappy customers, it all disrupts productivity, isn't it? And
Totally.
It creates an inefficient working environment.
Yeah, a toxic one. It could lead to a toxic work environment. Yeah, good. So that's great. I think you've summarized that really well. Thank you, Loic. So let's look at some of the reasons why people don't share their true feelings. So Loic, how are you feeling today?
And it's funny, you asked me that earlier, isn't it? But I said to you I was feeling good, so I guess that's fine, yeah? And then we started talking about the...
Yeah. You're acting strange. Is everything okay? No, okay. So, people, obviously people hide their true feelings for, many, many reasons. But with that being said, there are often people who have a work persona and a private life persona. So, naturally, when we go into a work environment, many people sort of put up a wall or a fence, or they put on their working hat, and then when they leave work, they take it off, and then there's someone completely different. Whereas other people are really open and transparent, and what you see is what you get. But there are many reasons why people don't want to share their true feelings. Sometimes things are private or personal, and it also depends a lot on the way you were raised. Were you brought up in a house where it was okay to talk about your feelings, or were you brought up in a house where it was people weren't emotional, and you were always told, no, just be quiet, stop crying, stop carrying on. So a lot of this is related to the way you were brought up. But some of the reasons are, let me look at one here. And this is, just to put it into context, this is some of the reasons why staff wouldn't share their feelings with their boss or their colleagues, okay? So the first one, and this is relating to if you want to be a better leader, the first one is being absent, okay? So being absent translates to you're too busy or you're unapproachable. This is the typical situation is an employee says, I thought you were too busy, so I didn't want to interrupt you, so I just didn't come and talk to you about this issue. Yeah, that's a typical one. That happens all the time. I'm so busy. Can we talk about this later? So being absent is the first one. Have you got the second one there, Loic?
I think not having the emotional intelligence to even realize that someone is upset or angry. It's not you. Yeah. Except it's not all about you. It's about the person you're working with. And emotional intelligence is...
Yeah, some people are just insensitive. Not they're insensitive on purpose. It's just they are doing their thing, and they just don't even... Yeah. They're not even sensitive to those around them. that's a bit of a cop-out, because I think most people really are quite, you can see when someone's upset, or you can see when someone's, but some people just, I mean, and that can relate to, some people who have, maybe who are a bit autistic or things like that, they, or have, what's the other one? Asperger's and things like that. Maybe if you have these conditions, then you don't really know how to read people's emotions correctly. But some people just, maybe because of the way that the types of households they grew up in, they just were really not, emotions were not expressed, so they've not really learned how to read other people's feelings or body language. So not having enough emotional intelligence, that can be another issue. What about this one? And this could be quite common at work as well, depending on the type of environment that you're working in. Never inquiring about how someone feels. If you're the type of boss that never, has time, or maybe one of the excuses is like, no, I'm the boss, so I need to create this distance between me and my employees because, we're not friends. I'm their boss and their superior, and they are my workers, or they are, my team members, but I need to keep a distance. I mean, there is a fine line between that. Obviously, like, if you become best friends with your staff and invite them over to your house for barbecues, and then you get drunk together, that could create some problems with in the workplace in terms of when you need to, like, get angry or not get angry, or get, you're frustrated by something that's happened and your staff has made a really grave mistake, but they're your friend, so you're like, I feel bad, reprimanding you.
100. Perfect.
But there's a big difference between never inquiring about how people feel. Like, you don't you agree, Loic? You should ask people how they're going.
And I'll just put one sentence in there. I think the key difference. Let's say you can't be friends with your subordinates, with the people who work for you, but that doesn't stop you from being friendly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can, and it's a decent human thing to do. Like, so how was your weekend, or how are you feeling? Like, you were sick. You were sick last week. Are you starting to feel better? I'm really sorry to hear about the death of your father. Things like that. Just normal humanistic things to do. What about the next one?
So, how about discounting somebody's feelings when they do open up? So they do open up, they tell you something, they're sharing how they feel about something, and you play it down. You're actually making it as it's not that important. It's certainly important to them.
Exactly. That can happen a lot in organizations, can't it? I mean, and again, that would depend on, like, the way that you were brought up, I guess. If in your household, when you revealed your feelings and someone sat and listened to you, then you're probably going to learn to be open to listening to other people's feelings. Whereas if you're brought up in a house where your feelings were shut down or discounted, then as a boss or a leader, when someone comes to you, your framework of reference is, oh, no, you're being, shut that down. That can be a problem one as well. So, you need to be, this is all about, related to emotional intelligence as well. So understanding when people are upset. What about, and this is sort of linked in, the next one's linked into this one, telling someone to stop being ridiculous, silly, or emotional. So again, you're labeling their feeling. Right. Yeah, you're labeling their feelings with, like, with words that really are making the other person feel bad, like, and that really comes back onto you. You don't really know how to deal with someone who is expressing their emotions, so you just shut those down. All right, buddy, what about the next one?
Yeah. So I think jumping in with solutions, probably prematurely. The whole idea is that you're jumping in prematurely, you're giving them solutions. That's not where they're at. They're still sharing their problem with you, and you haven't been listening, really.
Exactly. Because we want to problem solve straight away from the very first moment. And I mean, that's very common as well. I do this a lot of the time with my wife and kids. I'm like, oh, it's a problem, I'll fix it. And sometimes people don't even really want you to fix their problem. They just want you to listen. They want to unload their feelings, and then they're like, okay, I feel better now. Whereas it's like, I need to fix this. So yeah, jumping in prematurely with solutions can really stop people from, fully expressing how they feel. And maybe if you don't really understand what's going on, you're going to provide solutions which are not really effective or really focused on the actual problem. What about the next one?
I think even as a leader, it could be that you're not as comfortable being around people that are showing their emotions. You don't know how to deal with it yourself, actually. Easier to shut them down.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this is sort of all linked in now to what we have been saying. Yeah, people who don't really or are uncomfortable with the expression of emotions, they really feel uncomfortable, so they don't know how to react in that situation. And I think it can be a very common, especially at work. This is a business environment, it's a professional environment. Why are you crying? Why are you screaming? Why are you getting angry? Or why are you fighting? Aren't we all professionals here? So it's easy to dismiss people's feelings, I think, in business. Whereas if we wanted to create a good work environment, we need to sort of develop an environment where people are feeling comfortable to express how they feel. Sure. And lastly, overreacting to everything. Have you ever had a boss? Have you ever had a boss like that, Loic?
Never. By the way, in English, when we say never, it often means always.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially if we put a sarcastic tone and intonation on it. Yeah, I think we've all had a boss who's just overreacts to everything. And I think that's so unproductive. It's like everything's a drama. Everything is like a problem. We need to fix this now. And you're just running around putting out fires instead of, having this calm approach and understanding the real issues. I think a lot of organizations actually run like that because they are reactionary and not really based on the plans, or lots of small businesses too, I'm sure, are like that. You've got this founder who's very great at creating an organization from nothing. They've got a small team. They've got a small team around them, but they're just running around like a crazy person with not really any direction, and reacting to everything. So those are some of the reasons why people don't or feel a bit uncomfortable expressing their emotions. Okay, next part of the episode is, when should we use empathy at work? Would you like to lead with that, Loic?
Yeah, I think we need to use empathy at work daily. In fact, if we want to be good leaders, if we want to create an empowering environment, if we want to have meaningful and productive work environments where people are open to sharing, we need to show empathy to our colleagues and empathy to the people who work for us.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think times have changed a lot from the past, where people, it used to be just about, work used to be very transactional. I go to work, I'm here just to earn my weekly wage. I'm working on the production line, I make these cars. It was very transactional. I exchange my time for money because I need to, support my family, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think now people are, as we develop, as jobs change and maybe we move into more service-based industries, people really are more focused nowadays on finding a balance between their work life, their personal life. They want this flexibility. They want to have a good job, but they also want to have a good family life. They're interested in earning a good salary because they want to be well, remunerated. That's a difficult word to say, remunerate, or well compensated for the time that they're investing in this company. But at the same time, it's not just about the money. It's about working somewhere with, where they feel valued, They feel like they're part of something that's maybe bigger than them. They feel like their work has meaning, that their life, they feel fulfilled. So, I mean, these things are difficult to put like just time versus time in exchange for money value on. So when we introduce these, aspects of like, which are more psychological, like fulfillment, valued, respected, things like that, the way we develop this is through being empathetic towards other people. So there are many benefits to being empathetic towards other people on a daily basis. Would you like to add anything, Loic?
Something, a curveball, if you will.
I like, oh yeah, you're the curveball king. I like that. Just, does anyone, just so our listeners who maybe don't idioms. The expression, idioms. A curveball, it comes from like softball or baseball. Curveball, so it comes when it's pitched, it goes, and it surprises you because you think it's going to come straight at you, but it whips around from the side, so it can surprise you. So when you throw someone a curveball, you do or you say something that they're not really expecting, or you change abruptly. So what's the curveball, Loic?
So here's the thing, we talk about creating an environment where people feel happy, valued, and respected. And we have a dictum in management. It goes something like this: speak the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And essentially what it is maybe in many organizations, because of bad bosses, you may not want to tell people how you feel, because a lot of how you feel is related to your perception of your situation and probably the people around you. And if you were to openly say what you feel, that might get you into trouble. And so it might even get you fired. So it'll set you free. But the idea is it's a responsibility on the part of management to create an environment where people it's a safe environment. And it's not as wishy-washy as it sounds, just the ability for people to open up. Because if you take that out from the people and you deal with it in a constructive manner, or sometimes just allow them to get it out of them, it's no longer an issue. But it was an issue, 5 minutes before.
Yeah, everyone knows that, but they find it very difficult to accept it. I mean, if you just think of the last time in your household where there was an issue that was not dealt with, it festers and it creates this underlying tension within the harmony of the household. And these are the types of things that can lead to breakups and divorces, or really strained relationships between people. So imagine that within your organization, but on a larger scale, because you've got lots of people working together. It can really create this toxic or underlying problematic issues that are unresolved and not addressed within the organization. So yeah, I completely agree with you. So, but have you got any advice for people? I mean, because that's probably a big challenge. If you're dealing with a boss or a manager in the organization who is unable to, or there is this tension, but if you do say something or you complain to someone about them, it could result in you being fired or reprimanded. Have you got any advice for anyone on that?
I'll tell you something. It is not that easy, because when there are problems within the organizations and with people in general, and the people normally take the blame for it, but at the end of the day, it all starts with management. So it is a genuine concern going above the manager's head to the next person, potentially the owner of the company, a director, and so on. They often have an interest in keeping harmony, and they'll come down on the manager. And that makes your life worse. So I've often found that does make your life worse, going that route. Probably picking your moment, and we've all been there, when you have to choose between a rainy day and a sunny day when you approach the boss. And well, your boss, but sometimes it can be that if you say, hey, may I share something with you? And judge by their reaction, but often you can actually get a word in and just explain yourself how you feel about something that they say or do. But it is a bit of an art. A little bit of an art, you know.
I would agree there. And I think another challenge, the other option is you just find another job and you leave.
Yes.
Whereas if you're a leader though, and you want to create this productive, the cost of employing and retraining people in the organization is considerable. So, trying to find talented people, it's like all good leaders know that an organization is only as good as the people that are working for it. So that's why all the leadership or all the business schools, hire the best employees, hire the best people, pay them well, and keep them happy. I mean, it sounds really simple on paper, but this is what being, having this empathetic environment towards people is one of the steps to creating and keeping people happy. So to avoid like high staff turnover, these are some of the steps these are some of the things that we should do. So okay, let's continue. I've got some other tips on when we should show empathy in the workplace. The first one is really simple, and again, going back to emotional intelligence. If you notice strange behavior or a strange change in behavior in your colleague, what should you do? Well, ask them if they're okay. I mean, really simple. Yeah, are you okay? Is everything okay? So little things like that will help, because you don't know. People nowadays, have their personal life can spill over into their work life, and vice versa. Their work life can spill over into their personal life, creating conflict as well within their household. So it's really important if you see a change in someone's behavior that you ask them how they're going. What about another one, Loic? Have you got another concrete specific situation?
If you can imagine thinking through the implications of some of the work, some of the tasks that you assign to people, because you've got to know your people. Look, again, it comes down to management, but you've got to know who can handle what. And you've got to be sensitive to that, as opposed to simply being concerned with getting work off your table and onto their table. And so basically thinking of the implication, it doesn't help to give them a task that's going to be overwhelming and result in poorly executed work.
Exactly.
Again, reprimands and firings basically are extremely expensive. It actually represents a failure on the part of management, which basically makes it a failure to listen, a failure to be empathetic to your staff.
Yeah, or to understanding how they feel or their position. Yeah, I mean, we have a tendency as bosses to do that. This task is below me. I'll just palm it off. I'll just give that to someone else to do. And then sometimes without realizing, we are overloading people with work, and some of the tasks can be quite, the tasks need to get done, but again, you need to think about the distribution of labor and the workload on people. Another one is trying to understand people's any personal problems that they may have outside of work. So, such as sick relatives or kids. I know that they're not your best buddy, but still understanding these situations shows empathy towards others. Our lives are intertwined between our work life and our personal life. We are aware of that. We spend half our lives at work. So, it's important that if you see someone in a situation, give them time off if it's needed, and give them some flexibility if needed. And I think that's really relevant now with COVID. I mean, lots of parents now, maybe their kids are not sick, but the school says, we've had some cases, so your son now has to stay home for 2 weeks in confinement because one other kid got sick in the class. And then it's like, well, what do? I'm working. So in these situations, we need to show empathy towards people and try and be as flexible as possible to create this nice balance between the work life and private life. What about another one, Loic?
So here's the thing. We're all employed to deliver results. So we have to be results oriented. And as a manager, your tasks probably ought to be achieving results and retaining your people because of the reasons we mentioned. So being supportive of your colleagues, being supportive of your team members, if they fail on a project, again, you should know your people. That's your first step. You should know your people. But at the end of the day, if they're failing at something or a project doesn't quite deliver as planned, a bit of empathy would actually help, as opposed to just, hitting them on the negatives only, because that's counterproductive. It will not help you in the long term.
No, it won't. I mean, sometimes you obviously need to reprimand people, or you need to discipline people for specific behavior, but that's, if you're a good leader, that behavior that type of behavior will be clear to the team that this is not acceptable. But sometimes things fail because of other factors. So instead of getting angry and shouting, it's better to just, be empathetic, listen, find out the real reasons, and then try and address those problems so that we don't face these types of issues into the future. And the last one, which we've got, is being flexible with others and being open to their ideas and opinions. Super important. This is going back to the simple stuff that we spoke about last week in harpooning or boomeranging. Just listening to other people's ideas and getting perspective on other people's opinions can go a long way. If you feel listened to, you're much more likely to feel comfortable and confident about your worth within the organization. Okay, there's many more examples, but I just wanted to give you a few. What else? Let's move on to the next one, which is listening to facts versus listening to feelings. Did you want to lead with that, Loic?
Yeah, so probably 80% of your communications at work are dealing with fact. We're always discussing things that have happened, are happening, or planned to happen. So we don't discuss feelings unless the boss is really angry, And I think as a leader, you probably have to ask things of your staff that, let's face it, the results are not going to be what you expected necessarily, and that can be very frustrating. So you may wish to know all the facts. I think you've got to listen out for facts sometimes and not just focus on the feelings. And it sounds like we're contradicting ourselves, but I think there's merit in that. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Most of the discussion at work is around facts. However, sometimes getting to the real facts, so revealing the true facts, requires you to listen to people's feelings. Because often people will just blame someone else. No, it wasn't because they fear that they'll get in trouble. So, they'll try and blame you, and then their colleague, and then their colleague will say, "No, it wasn't my fault." They blame someone else. So, in this situation, as a leader, it's very difficult to really understand what the root cause of the problem is. And in this situation, it's important to listen to the feelings, like really trying to get under the surface and say, okay, what's really going on here? Is there resentment between these two people? Did one of them do or say something to the other person that caused feelings of resentment or anger or frustration? And then labeling those feelings. So if we can scratch the surface and listen to feelings as opposed to facts, then we can, as you said, get to the facts. Okay, so I mean, it sounds easy, but I guess trying to listen to people's feelings can be a bit of a challenge. I mean, some of the tips are really just to like label that. So are you really frustrated, or are you feeling angry about, or do you feel frustrated with? And then the person will say, well, yeah, I do feel really frustrated by John because, and then you're like, now we're sort of understanding the true cause of this. So facts, obviously, the world of business runs on facts. Is this factual or not? But sometimes understanding or trying to get to the root cause of issues, we need to listen to feelings. Okay, let's look at some expressions now, buddy. So we're going to move on to this is the second part of the episode. We've really just looked at what empathetic listening is, the benefits, when we should use it, some of the reasons why people don't express their true feelings. And now we're going to give you the language, because after all, this is the Art of Business English podcast, and you are all here to learn and improve your English. So let's move on to this, some expressions. What have we got in the way of expressions, Loic? We have a little list here.
Yeah, we have a little list. So how about we start off with, that sounds, like you have been put in a difficult situation.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it sounds to me like you have been put in a difficult position or a difficult situation, which is good because they're identifying with that person. You can see that they are in a difficult position. Another one is, that sounds really hard for you, or that sounds really difficult for you. So you're showing empathy by telling them that you appreciate that the situation is difficult or hard. I mean, and these expressions are not like complicated to use. They're very simple. What's the next one?
So before we go into the next one, I just want to add that the idea of using that sounds is very good, because what it does is it shows that you're taking an interest in their situation. It shows that you're trying to look at it from their point of view, but it also allows them the opportunity to correct your point of view. So if you got it wrong and that, you say it sounds really hard for you, if you say it in that way, basically they can always correct you and say, well, actually it was like this. So anyway, you could look at the situation.
Yeah, it's not like you're telling them how they feel. You're telling them that I sort of think that that's how it sounds, and it's like, that is how it sounds. Or no, actually it sounds like this, which is good. Okay. Another one.
Are you feeling anxious, stressed, or worried? And we're not saying you must use all three. We're saying, are you feeling one of the three, stressed, worried, anxious, about what might happen? Because you can anticipate that something is going to happen, and that may be causing some anxiety with them.
Exactly. And you're not telling someone how they feel, you're asking them how they feel, and you're actually being quite specific about the emotion. You're labeling the emotion. You're not saying, are you feeling okay? Or are you feeling all right? You're being quite specific. Like, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling happy? So you're labeling the type of emotion. Okay, another one is, it sounds to me that you are feeling pretty disappointed by the situation. So by saying that, it sounds to me that you are feeling pretty disappointed by the situation. So you're telling the person that you think you've interpreted their feelings. And this type of sentence is neither a question nor labeling their emotions and telling them how they feel. It's your interpretation of how they feel, which leaves it open for them to clarify, which is always good. What's the next one, buddy?
It sounds like you're feeling hurt by what was said by your colleagues. So now you've got to train yourself to observe. I think observing is very important. Active listening has a lot to do with observation, and we can discuss which one causes which, but observation is part of it. So by throwing it out there and saying, well, it sounds like you're feeling hurt, they can always correct you if they're not, but it shows empathy.
Yeah, and often, like, if you're sensitive and you have identified the emotion correctly, the person who was not opening up will suddenly open up and say, yes, I am very hurt. I don't think what they said was fair. Okay, now we understand what's going on. And this can really help to, open the situation up and let people get these emotions out, and then you can deal with them. And lastly, just a simple one, would a coffee and a 15-minute break help? So would a coffee and a 15-minute break help? So you're just telling someone, it's like offering a little solution, and you're using would, this conditional, so you're making it very suggestive. And the person would say, actually, I think I would go and have a break. And then you could say, we'll sit down and have a coffee together, and you can explain what happened to me. Very simple. Okay, great. Now we're going to look at ways to show empathy. So what are some of the ways we can show empathy, which is different from expressing empathy? What are some of the ways?
Yeah, so I think some of the ways could be simple phrases like acknowledging, wow, you've been through a lot. So you're kind of seeing it from their point of view, and you're acknowledging that it comes down to observation, but show some active listening. You've got to actually play a certain role.
Good. Okay. So these are related to the first one is, so these helpful expressions. So simple phrases which acknowledge the situation is great. Another one is legitimization. So I'll say that again, legitimization. So you're legitimization. Your legitimization. So you're legitimizing the situation. So now I understand why you would have felt that way. So you're legitimizing their feelings. You're saying, yes, it's okay that you feel this way, and I understand why you feel this way. So that's a great way to do it. And that makes people identify with you and say, oh, thank God you understand me. Because what do most people want to feel? Understood and accepted by others, yeah. All right, what about another one? This one's very good for meetings too.
So yeah, absolutely. So what I'm thinking is paying close attention and paraphrasing. And so you check your understanding against that. So for example, I just want to check I understand. You're saying, and you're basically saying what they might have said. So the client changed their mind without informing you. So you're asking a question, you know, and you're just wanting to clarify what it is that you're feeling yourself, your perception of what's going on. So paraphrasing, I think, is very useful.
Oh, it's super. Yeah, I love this. I teach this a lot in my meetings course, and it's a fantastic skill in business because it's a fantastic skill for language learners, because a lot of the time a language learner will say, oh, I didn't understand, but you do understand something. You always understand something. So instead of saying to your colleague, sorry, could you please repeat that? Or your potential client, I always encourage my students to paraphrase things. And this is a great skill not only for being empathetic towards others, it's a great skill to have when you're negotiating or in a business meeting or on the phone. You say, sorry, if I understand you correctly, you're saying this, or sorry, when you said this, did you mean that? Or in this case, I just want to check understanding. You're saying that the client changed their mind without informing you. And then your colleague might say, yes, the customer completely changed their mind and it's not fair because they didn't tell us that the specifications had changed and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Another one is self-disclosure. Now, we spoke about this last week. Self-disclosure can sometimes be boomeranging, so we need to be careful with that. But the self-disclosure is when you say, oh, I had something very similar happen to me and I also felt very frustrated. So we're saying, I also felt frustrated. So in this situation, the person has told us, so that our colleague or the team member has told us that they feel frustrated by what happened. So they've already labeled the emotion. You tell them that you had something similar happen to you, and in your situation, you also felt frustrated. You're not telling them that you know exactly how they feel, okay? And you're not boomeranging where you're like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. I did this, I did that. All right, you're just disclosing something quickly. And I mean, Loic, you did mention this last week, that a combination of boomeranging and harpooning.
Yeah. So I was going to throw in there, maybe you can correct me if you don't think it's relevant, but sometimes, oftentimes, you might acknowledge that and say, I had that happen to me once and I felt frustrated, right? And you ask that simple one-worded question followed by a question mark, and that offers them the opportunity to say, yeah, that's right. And so you're bouncing the conversation backwards and forwards and making progress, as opposed to closing it off and saying, I also felt frustrated. So do a combination of harpooning where you're actually allowing the conversation to go back to them, as opposed to bringing it back to you.
Excellent, love it. Okay, and finally, expressing your feelings, which is nice. I'm really sad to hear that. I mean, the most typical representation of that would be when someone passes away. You know, my mother died over the weekend. I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, we almost say that naturally, but we can look for other situations where this expression could be used. Like, I'm really sad to hear that you lost the contract. Oh, that's disappointing. Yeah. Or, you know, I'm really sad to hear that that you're retiring at the end of the month, or that you're leaving the organization. Okay, so you're expressing your feelings as well. All right, and we're coming to the end now. We're going to look now at the last part, which is unhelpful things to avoid saying. I love this. This is so funny because we do this a lot. We do this a lot. Like, yeah,
we do, right?
Yeah. People say the silliest things. All right. So, what are some of the things we probably should avoid saying if we're trying to be or to show empathy towards others?
Don't be ridiculous. Don't be emotional.
Yeah.
We literally shut them down right there.
Yeah, stop being ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Stop being so emotional. Control yourself. Things like that. No? Another one, this one's great. Just snap out of it. Just snap out of it. It's nothing. Oh, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
Yeah. Funny story. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in this summer, my daughter, who's like almost 11, she wanted to go on a sea-doo, on a jet ski, and you know, like they're not cheap to rent for an hour. I was like, bah, I'll take you, because she's been asking me for like a couple of years now. I'm like, okay, let's go. And literally, like, we went for an hour, and one day on WhatsApp, she saw a video of like a father and a son on a jet ski waving to people on the boat, and then suddenly the jet ski goes boom and explodes. Yeah, probably should never have seen that video, but she did before. And so we're burning around the jet ski, and it's like the last 10 minutes, and suddenly like a warning light comes on, beep, beep, and like my daughter just started to freak out. And yeah, she thought the jet ski was going to explode. And I was like, why is it beeping? That doesn't look good. So we waved over the jet ski guide, and he was a young guy, and like absolutely hopeless, empathetic. He was like, it's nothing, just ignore it. And my daughter's like, like freaking out because she thought the jet ski was going to blow up. Yeah. And literally like, it stopped, and then we kept burning around, and then it started again, and he came back and said like, it's nothing, it's just, mine's doing the same thing, it's fine. And like literally when we got back to the port, it was just because the jet ski was running low on petrol. Like that was it. It was just running low on petrol because it was the end of the day, and the jet ski had been burning around all day and the tank was empty. But all he had to say was that, instead of saying, it's nothing, just get over it. So there's a little story of you know, and my daughter was, you know, she was having a great time until the last 10 minutes, and then it wasn't much fun. So yeah, showing empathy can change the situation instantly. What's another thing we could say, Loic?
Well, usually questions are good. Except this one is going to sound more like a statement, and that is like, how could you even think that? And immediately you're shutting the person down. You know, like clearly they shouldn't have told you, because your question isn't really a question. How could you even think that? Yeah. And we say things like that. Yeah,
it's like we're telling someone how to think. Don't think like that. You shouldn't think that way. Yeah. How could you even think that? Yeah, that's a great one too. I think you're being over the top. Over the top means you're exaggerating, you're being over emotional. Yeah, I think you're being over the top. So again, you're telling someone that the way they're feeling is too much. Another one?
Pull yourself together. Pull yourself together and stop carrying on like a child.
Well, that's a difficult one.
Now you're being demeaning on top of it as well.
Yeah.
So you're telling them to stop their behavior, and that what your perception of that behavior is. It's not helping.
Not at all.
That's not empathetic at all.
No, and that's also a very difficult, like, that expression's full of idiomatic expressions. So pull yourself together means to control your emotions, and to stop carrying on like a child. This carrying on has nothing to do with like to carry. No, it actually means stop behaving like a child. So yeah, you're learning a lot of expressions here, as well as great business skills. Another one is this situation is really annoying me. Yeah, you're just telling someone that what they're doing and the way they're behaving is annoying you. Now in Spanish, annoy is molestar. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're annoying me. Okay, I'll just go away now. All right, what else?
Well, you never seem to learn from your mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're making a statement, and again, it's being demeaning. It's pointing out something which may not even be true about them never learning from their mistakes.
Yeah, as a good leader.
And it could be in response to a personal explanation of something that they're going through, but your acknowledgement isn't really helping either, about them not learning from their mistakes, from their past.
Exactly, and as a leader, you should be teaching and training people and giving them the skills they need to succeed within the organization. So if you keep telling people that, then maybe the training program that you have in place is not very effective. So again, looking back on yourself is important. And finally, I'm sick and tired of repeating myself. Oof. I'm sick and tired of repeating myself. myself. Now, sick and tired basically means harto in Spanish, like I'm fed up, I've had enough, and of repeating myself. So you're basically telling people that they're not listening to you, which is quite ironic because often it means that you're the one that's not listening. So these are some expressions that you should avoid using. Now, that's the end of the episode. But before I go, really important, if you do want to review all these tips and all these expressions, then you should definitely go to the blog over at The Art of Business English, because all of these expressions are there. Okay, so I encourage you to go over to The Art of Business English. And Loic and I always encourage you to leave us your comments and any thoughts that you would like to share with us. We'd like it when you guys give us a bit of feedback or give us your thoughts, because we love to listen to you. We're great listeners. All right, buddy. Final thoughts. Anything before we conclude today?
Maybe a one-liner. I would say to anybody out there that's listening, do not listen with the intent of replying, but the intent to understand.
Nice. Again, one more time for the audience.
Do not listen with the intent of replying, but the intent to understand.
Very good, exactly. And there's a great book, The Habits of Highly Effective People, I think it's called. The author now has escaped me. I've read it. It's a classic. And yeah, he says that listen to understand, basically. So yeah, I mean, becoming an empathetic listener is a great business skill. I think it is one in which you will create a really positive, fulfilling, productive environment within your organization, and you're going to create a team where people are harmoniously working together. Their views and their opinions are valued. They feel respected. And you're going to be sensitive to the things that are happening within the organization and the things that are happening within their personal lives. And people are going to cherish working in an environment like this. People are going to feel like they want to be there, and overall it's going to create a great place to work and a better organization. So that's it from me, buddy. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, fantastic. If you guys love The Art of Business English, then please drop us a 5-star review over at iTunes. Would be really appreciated. We don't really promote The Art of Business English anywhere except through word of mouth. And once again, Loic, thanks for having.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. And next week we're going to do. I think we're going to do a bit of stuff on actual listening skills, like how to improve your listening skills and a little bit of active listening, no?
Yeah, and actual behavior, actionable behavior that you can follow, which will automatically make you a good listener.
Excellent. Well, you can lead next week. How does that sound?
All right, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, cool.
Take over your show.
Excellent. Well, everybody, thanks very much for listening again, and we'll see you all next week on The Art of Business English. Bye for now.